Hello and welcome everyone, my name is Nicholas, and this is Literally Graphic. And today I'm touching on one of the final volumes on my first Black Comics TPRs, namely Bitter Root, Volume 1, Family Business, TP. Published in 2019 via Image Comics. Another not exactly mainstream title, but because it's put together by big hitters in the industry, I get to decide it is. Another link in the cards is musical Tati, another Black booktuber who is a solid follow. Check her out. My general warnings about this book is it's an action thing. There's large needles, monsters, an attempted lynching, police violence, and inspiration from and synthesis of a couple kinds of African diaspora spirituality. This latter point is discussed fairly extensively in essays at the end. And police violence. Breaking out the creative team, Bitter Root was written by Chuck Brown and David F. Walker. Looking at their Image Comics bios, they are described as follows. Chuck Brown has written The Punisher and Black Panther comics for Marvel. He is the writer and co-creator of Rotten Apple for Dark Horse Comics and the writer and co-creator of Bitter Root, which will debut in 2018 from Image Comics. He has been self-publishing for more than 18 years and has written comics for Zanescope Entertainment, 12 Gauge Comics, and Line Webtoons. David F. Walker is a comic book writer, filmmaker, and educator. He has worked for Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Boom, Dynamite, and Image. He teaches at Portland State University. The artist, colorist, and cover artist is Sanford Green, who has worked professionally in comic illustration and related industries for over 15 years, including work for mainline publishers such as Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, and Image Comics. Recent work includes the hit Marvel series Power Man and Iron Fist, as well as covers for Black Panther and Luke Cage. He currently works on his creator-owned online series for Line Webtoon 1000 and the anticipated Bitter Root, a dark fantasy action ongoing series published by Image Comics set during the Harlem Renaissance. The second person credited as colorist is Rico Renzi, who is simply described on Comics Vine as colorist, designer, and creative director. Letterer Clayton Cowles is described on Image as follows. An Eisner-nominated letterer, he graduated from the Joe Kubert School in 2009 and has been lettering comic books ever since. In addition to uncool mainstream titles like Daredevil, Star Wars, and Batman, Clayton has worked on Bitch Planet, Bitter Root, Die, Moonstruck, Redlands, The Wicked and the Divine, and a host of other books published by Image Comics. He resides in upstate New York in a house with 2 cats. And finally, according to her Twitter, Heather Antos is a senior editor at Valiant and Image, previously Marvel, Star Wars, Disney, creator of Signal Boost Sunday. The description of the volume on Goodreads is, quote, once known as the greatest monster hunters of all time, the Sangerye family specializes in curing the souls of those infected by hate, but those days are fading. A terrible tragedy has claimed most of the family, leaving the surviving cousins split between curing monsters and killing them. Now that a new breed of monsters is loose on the streets of Harlem, the Sangerye family must come together or watch the human race fall to untold evil. The art of Bitter Root is extremely expressive, but still very easy to parse, which is a very cool combination. Not trying to be realistic, but the use of line and color was very expressive, fully utilizing the visual elements of the graphic novel to tell us about the characters and scenes. I feel like it reminded me of Paul Pope, but I have not read anything by them of late, so this is through the fuzzy lens of memory. I certainly felt like this story was a bit easier to follow than some of Pope's stuff. As far as sexuality and gender goes, it didn't appear to be something the creators wanted to engage at all. There's a decent amount of what modern society tells me is an assumed cis woman and cis men, although one of these is more central to the action than the other generally. Race is obviously a big focus of the book, set during the Harlem Renaissance. I guess this is alternative history urban fantasy, urban alt history fantasy, ? For interested parties, there are a number of essays at the end of the volume that talk about some of the different Afro-cultural and spiritual traditions that inspired Bitterroot. We also have a white character who reminded me more than a little bit of Everett K. Ross of Christopher Priest's Black Panther fame. Thankfully, he's not the viewpoint character, but it did feel like Johnny Ray Knox, cross my fingers, I think that's his name, fulfilled some of the same roles. As you might have guessed from my mentioning the attempted lynching and the warnings, racism is something covered in this volume. It does go beyond that, however, and really weaves the effects of racism into the more fantastical elements of the story as well as the plot. Reading a lot of more nonfiction stuff about race recently, it was nice change to read through not only a fictional work tackling race, but doing so in a creative sideways sort of way, overflowing with creativity. As far as class goes, well, assuming I didn't miss anything, this volume doesn't really mention money at all. The aesthetics read is fairly working class in my humble opinion. Not much, but we get even less, aka nothing, for disability versus ability rep. Overall, I will be giving this volume 4 out of 5 stars. Bye y'all, keep reading and resist white supremacy. And as always, Literally Graphic is recorded on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and Anishinaabe people, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat Nation. I live here because of British colonization, indigenous genocide, and more geographically specific, Treaty 13, also known as the Toronto Purchase, which was finalized in 1805 between representatives of the Crown and certain Mississauga peoples. This treaty was a lie and has since been broken many times over. Saying so reflects only my own small steps towards knowing the truth and does nothing for reconciliation.